We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their
She was told that she couldn't play with the boys. She was told that they were too big, too rough, too strong. She was told to give up her dreams and move on. She was told to just be pretty, be quiet, be a lady. She was told that women had to stay on their side of the court, stay in your lane. Playing and competing with men was insane. She was told that men and women would never be equal. Dreaming like that would only be linked to your mind, to your soul. She never listened. She knew that their thinking was old. She is magic. She is the definition of spirit. She is what champions are made of. She is now.
Greetings and welcome to Access Wealth Nation for a wonderful night of check it up from the neck up and getting your financial information so that you can become financially free. If you know better, you'll do better, right? So tonight we're going to be talking about, of course, this is Black History Month, the beginning of Black History Month, February. I know a lot of people don't know why it's on a February, the shortest month of the year, but it has to do with the fact that there was Frederick Douglass's birthday along with Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And so they decided to create Black History Month and identify, it used to be Black History Day. So it's moved and evolved. But that being said, we do what we have to do to be able to let our people be aware and that others be respectful of the history of our people in this country. So that being said, of course, I got to give you the offer that with How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. This book is the #1 financial book in the country, of course, until I write mine. But How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. If you'd like to get the book, all you have to do is send me an email at Anaj Enterprises Inc. at gmail.com. I'm sorry, Anaj Enterprises Inc. at gmail.com. All you have to do is say, I listen to Access Wealth Nation with Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse. And it's broadcast, of course, on Soul City Network. And if you put that out there and send me the email, you get the book for free $99. No obligations, okay? Just getting the financial literacy out there to our community. You know, that's my focus and my desire is that we get our community up and running and become financially free and aware. No guarantees. But if you know better, again, you'll do better. And so that's one. Now, if you'll really want to get knee deep and change your life and get an opportunity to see what I say is that if you have a plan, then you're planning not to fail. But if you have no plan, then you certainly are planning to fail. So to do that with another no obligation, you can get a free financial analysis. And all you have to do is call my office, 646-375-2121, and say you'd like to get a free financial analysis. Now, you may not get it done by me directly, but you will get it done by one of us in the office, people that I have trained. And again, I'm always looking for individuals that want to get into the financial service industry. Why? Because it's such a need. It's approximately, out of the financial service industry, there are approximately 3% of individuals of color that represent the industry. Well, out of this, you got to think about it. If we get a chance to talk to each other, we live in a certain community, we understand each other. Sometimes you'd like to have someone to talk to that can understand the trials and tribulations that you go through in your community. Now, again, we all have, no matter what, black, brown, gray, uh, whatever the situation is that we all have similar situations, but sometimes you want to talk to someone who looks and understands your world. So that's why we provide the financial services to anyone, of course. But if you'd like us to help you and create a plan for free, no obligation, I have to say that because it's true, is that if you would get a plan so that you can make a difference in your life and your family's life. All you have to do is, of course, send us either an email or call, and the email is anajenterprisesinc@gmail.com. Of course, this is tax season. So it's really a situation of where I pray every day that I got enough energy to get through. I've been doing this officially for 44 years. Yeah, I know I look good for 44, but it's been a blessing. And I really believe that the financial service industry has a tendency to be the fountain of youth, because you get a chance to release and in many cases own your own business. Isn't that awesome? And I'm going to be doing this month a session on just entrepreneurship. Would y'all like that? Now, you can respond and communicate with me through the chat. And this way you get an opportunity. I will answer your questions. But first, to start off, every show this month for Black History Month, I will be talking about one of our sheroes and heroes. And I have a particular, I guess, an affinity and relationship with this gentleman as I was coming up in the industry. And his name is Mr. Reginald Lewis. Now, many of you should know about Reginald Lewis. He was a powerhouse. Lost him basically at the age of 50. And sometimes that happens when we give all. We come here for a mission and then we lay it down. But let me tell you a little bit about Reginald Lewis, because I think you should know it, and I think you should have your children look him up, Google him. Why? He was truly an American businessman. The power behind him, he happened to be the richest Black American man in the 1980s. That's when I was just getting out of college, and he was the first Black American to build a $1 billion company, not a million, billion with a B. And many of you may know what that company is. It's TLC Beatrice International Holdings. Now, you might not know it by that name, but have you ever heard of Tropicana or even McCall? McCall's. I remember growing up, and McCall's had a patterns. That's how we were able to get our clothes together. And he turned those businesses into $1 billion and made it into among Forbes 400 richest Americans with a net worth of $1 billion. Now that's someone you need to look at and listen to and track. One thing that I wanted to talk about him is the fact that he learned how to leverage went to Virginia State College, and in his undergrad, and in grad school, he went to Harvard on a program that was embracing African Americans to become attorneys. Same way, I believe that President Obama also came from that same law school. And one of the noted information about him is that he was able to parlay these businesses. After he worked for a law firm for a couple of years, he decided to create basically a venture capital firm that would raise capital. And he created it into creating some fixed assets, and he borrowed money. He took money from family, friends, to make this company work. And I think that's powerful when you want to do something, and it's really not that easy in this world. You know why? Especially as a person of color, people don't think you can manage money. Well, he proved them wrong. And that's what we have to look at is that if you have a passion, you need to go for it and work towards building towards that passion and learning how to put your business together. Make sure it's structured right. We'll have a program this month on structured business. And then after that, you have the opportunity to build even more and create jobs for people in your community. Okay, Terrell is saying he financed this way into that Harvard program. Oh, okay. I think that's what he's saying. I'm sorry if I can't see too well. We're in another location because I'm doing taxes at the same time of our show. So, but it's true. He took an opportunity of being in school and receiving some assistance and turning that into a $1 billion industry. I think that is so powerful. And especially since it was Beatrice. I originally, when I used to look at Beatrice, I didn't know how powerful it was, but he had it to the point that he made that business grow, and it had a 90-to-1 return. So that's for every dollar, there was 90. That's a powerful situation. And then you have, out of that profit, he owned about 81.7% of the company, and that was a $90 million company. You know, we've got to look at these people, and like I said, our heroes and our sheroes. And I just was talking to our numerologist, our infamous numerologist, Lloyd Strayhorn today. And in telling it, I told him how much I was endeared to Reginald Lewis, and he said, "Did you know that your numbers mirror his?" So I'm like, I'm on the right track, except for that part about leaving this world at an early age. But it is so wonderful to know. So I just want to say to you that you go look up Reginald Lewis, and every time this month, I'm going to have someone that I want you to look up and read about them. He had a book, which I agree with, is Why Should the White Boys Have All the Fun? And talked about his world in investments. And so just take that time out and look at our, like I said, our heroes. So this is Reginald Lewis. He is a Black American financial hero. Yes, we are in this industry having changes and making leaps and bounds in the financial service industry, and more should come on board. So that being said, my next situation of where I think is very important is we're in the midst of tax season. It has started. The 24th of January kicked it off. Some of you have already filed your returns. Some of you may want to know what is deductible and what changes took place this year. So I thought I'd give you a little heads up of what really is going on, since I've filed a few returns now and have experienced the changes. Before you file your return, you really need to check and see the monies that you received from the government. One is if you had children, a child that was under the age of 6, Then at that point, you got some child tax credit. It should have, at the most, you would have gotten $300 a month for 6 months. And you may be looking to get the other 6 months worth. But to do so, you have to file your tax returns, number one, because some people didn't think they needed to file if they're not in a certain income bracket, but you have to file. But more than that, you got to know what you received, because there are people who received and may not have qualified properly. The IRS is going to ask you for some money back. And then you have people who should have received and didn't. They're going to give you some of that money back also. They're going to give it to you. The other thing is that if you had children that were over the age of 6, then you, and under the age of 17, so 6 to 17, you were eligible for $250 a month. And that was for 6 months. So again, you need to know what did you receive, how you received it, and then enter it into the tax returns. That's something very new. Also, for those of you who received the 1,400 stimulus, I know it's been a long time. It came along somewhere between, I believe it was February to March of last year. So a lot of people have forgotten that they received it, but you can go on irs.gov and take yourself into creating an online account. That's what it's called, an online account. And then at that point, you can see what you've received or what you should have received. Now, we've had a lot of situations with identity theft, especially last year. I have run into a few people who had their unemployment stolen from them. Yes, I'm using the word stolen because that's what it is. And they did not receive it. And there are things that you have to do. Number one, you got to go to the police and report it and get a police report. But number two is that you have to report it to IRS and get a claim. There are forms that need to be filed to say that you did not, someone stole your identity, and so that they don't steal it again this year. So you must do that. And so, with unemployment, I'm hoping that all of you withheld taxes, because if not, you may really be owing. Again, this year, there is no exclusion of the 10,200. So be very careful. If you think you're going to, well, you can also use there's a calculator on IRS to see if you're going to owe. But if you're going to your accountant or your tax preparer, have them check it out for you to see how close you are. And possibly you might have to make a payment plan. So the earlier you file, the better. Get your information together. You should have by now received most of your documents or all of your documents, like your 1099s, your W-2 forms. A lot of stuff is electronic, so it shouldn't hold you up. But the key is that you need to make sure you have all your documents and your information, because if you don't, it is definitely going to slow up your tax preparation and also slow up your refund, without a doubt. Government is tight this year. So you need to make sure that you've done all that you had to do. And a lot of you really should go to a professional at this stage, because so many things have changed in the law. But if not, you have the right to do your taxes on your own or use some of the programs that are out here that don't cost anything. But if you need advice, you need to be able to pay for that advice. So make sure you have your W-2, your miscellaneous 1099s, and your NEC 1099s. What's that? Is a non-employee compensation. So that's if you're working independent, you should have that. You should also, don't play if you have been receiving income or for you working for people, or compensation, and you had it through Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, all of those online, and PayPal, because you think that the government doesn't know it or they won't see it. Wrong. So you need to make sure that you report your income. There's a penalty for not claiming your income, yes. And so, that's on someone's watching you, they watching. And so don't play. Make sure you count all of the income that's reportable. So let's talk a little bit about on the personal side about deductions. Due to the tax laws changed and tax adjustments made since 2018, not a lot that you can deduct, especially on the federal side. Of course, on the state side, for those of you who are like New York, you do have some things you can deduct. So I'm going to sort of switch back and forth as we go through this of what's deductible. You do have your mortgage interest if you own a house. You can deduct the mortgage interest. Now, if you have a real estate tax and it's your private home, not a rental income, you're going to be limited, and that's limited by what's on your W-2 form that you paid to the state, and also what you paid in real estate tax. The max is $10,000. So if you have out of your salary $3,000 that was withheld, and you had let's say $7,000 out of your real estate tax, then you're able to deduct that. But if let's say you had $8,000 out of your real estate tax, $1,000 is not going to be counted. That's just the way it is right now. Maybe Congress at some point will start to repeal all the tax changes that were made. But right now, this is what we're dealing with. Also, note that IRS says it. They're short of staff. So e-filing is almost imperative if you want to get your tax refund on time. We will see, because the first group of taxes e-filed have gone through, and we should see by tomorrow some of those refunds coming out. We'll see. I'm sure the news network will definitely get out, but you stay tuned at Access Wealth Nation on Soul City, and we'll keep you posted. If necessary, we'll have an emergency news break, okay, if something has changed. The other thing that you can deduct is medical bills. I've never seen so many medical bills this year, as much as this year. But I will remind you, your medical bills mean what you paid, not what was billed, okay? Because a lot of people have taken me, well, I have a bill of $10,000, but I've only paid $3,000 of it. Well, the $3,000 is the only thing that gets considered for a deduction. And I said considered, not necessarily as definitely deductible. But in your medical bills, it goes everything. What goes in there is your medical premiums that you pay for insurance, doctor and dentist visits, and medicine, your eyeglasses, contacts, hearing aid, medical equipment, even the hearing aid batteries. If your doctor will put in writing that you must go to the gym, it is necessary. You might have high cholesterol or something. If that's the case, then you can definitely add that into your medical bills. And if you basically receive any assistance from the marketplace, please make sure that you wait until you get your 1095 A, B, C, and D. If you don't wait and it ends up that you might have gotten more supplement than is allowed, it can cost you. And if you file your tax returns and you did not include that and filled out the form correctly, then you can end up at the end of the year owing money. So patience is a virtue. Take your time and make sure you get your documents together. Take a look at your last year's tax returns and see what was on that return or what was included. This will help you and your preparer, or you by yourself, to make sure that you've got everything in order. The other thing is, some of you may have made contributions, which was kind of difficult this year, to like Salvation Army or to Goodwill, because a lot of them were closed. But if you did, hopefully you got a receipt. You should outline what deductions, these are non-cash deductions. So you need to write out a list of what was in that bag that you were able to donate. Other ways is cash. Now, if you're giving and tithing, now I know some people out there have a problem with tithing. They don't want to deduct it. You're allowed, and I say you can give unto Caesar what is Caesar, give unto God, which is God. So I would say if you have that ability to make the deduction, take it, help you. And then when you make a larger refund, donate some more. Okay. But if you do, you should get a statement from your church or your religious organization, synagogue, or whatever is out there, your spiritual center. If you're giving, you should make sure you get a receipt. You shouldn't be giving cash. You should be giving checks. Okay. Because, and if you don't have checks, because we're not in a world of checks, so this makes it a lot different. You at least keep some record, even if the church, which I'm sure some churches and religious facilities have also Cash App, PayPal accounts. I've seen it. So you've got to keep record of what is really going to be deductible for you. Many people, in the way that the new tax laws were set up, was that you just take your standard deduction, which is what the government says you can deduct without having to prove it. That works for some, but many not. And so at that point, you have to check what is really deductible. Now, I'll tell you, those of you who don't have retirement plans at your job, which I'm finding more and more companies have closed down their retirement plan. When they say they've closed it down, it doesn't mean that the money that was placed in the retirement plan to begin with is gone. It's there. And you do have rights, if they close the plan down, to roll it over and put it into your control and how you would like to invest it. That can be done. You should talk to a financial advisor. And if you don't have one, feel free to call Anaj Enterprises at 646-375-2121, and we can assign you one. And it doesn't cost anything to get that kind of help. It's better to know and move forward, than to be in a position of, oops, I made a mistake. And if y'all have any questions, please feel free to place it in the comments section. And I'm hoping this is helpful to you, because I'm seeing a lot of things happening, and as far as this economic situation. And so I want to see if we can catch it ahead of time and be on time for receiving what we're supposed to, our refunds, or know how much we owe and give ourselves enough time to pull it together before April 15th. Because April 15th, there's no additional extension on filing on time. You can get an extension in filing, but you don't get the extension on paying. So remember that. Many people will say, well, I have an extension. I can wait until October to file my taxes. Yes, you can, to file them, but not to pay. If you wind up owing, you're going to get a penalty. And the penalty is kind of stiff. It's like $453. I don't know where they got the number from, but that's what the fee is for not for late filing. And it's late paying. I'm sorry, correct that. Late paying. So be very careful, but if you know in advance, also, if you file early and your job doesn't have a retirement plan, or you qualify for what's called an individual retirement account, you can figure out, can you put this money away and place it into a retirement account, your individual retirement account, and that could reduce your taxable income. So it's better in your hands later, 59 and a half and above, than to worry about it and having to give it to Uncle Sam, and they don't give back anything. They just not, So this is just one of the things you could. And on the state side here in New York, if you have an IRA and you're paying fees for it, or if you're paying investment fees for investments that you're making, and that's everything that you could possibly, from consultations. Some of you are paying fees to like Robinhood and Acorn, those type of things. Those can be deductible. deducted and help bring down your income if you're itemizing. And if that's the case, but you need to see if that works. And it's only counting again for the state on those things because we lost that on the federal. Um, Other things that are deductible, of course, on the state side also here in New York is job related expenses, your union dues, all that stuff that I thought should stay on the federal side. That's just my opinion. Um, is now going on the federal side, but it is available and you can see whether or not you have a right to itemize or take the standard deduction, what they give you. So you've got to work with this, when you're looking at your tax returns, again, make sure, and especially if you're going to go see um, a tax accountant or a tax preparer, or you're going to some of these small shops, mom and pop shops on the street, whatever you're using, make sure you take everything that you need, which is also your dependents. Make sure that you have name, date of birth, social security number. And if they are not a child that is your biological child, you need to bring some kind of proof that you have the right to claim this child. It is one of the biggest things that has come up this tax year because so many people have filed head of household. And please let me identify head of household. Head of household does not mean that you pay the bills for the house and you live in the house, so therefore you're head of household. No, if you have no children or a qualified adult or disabled individual, you're probably a single, okay? But if not, then at least if it's a case of where you do have the rights and they are not your biological child, you need to have some kind of note to explain why you're able to claim this child or this adult, this person. Why? Because there are people who do take care of their family and the family member lives with them. Now, if the family member is a parent, they don't have to live with you. But if your family member is a child, they need to live with you. And they should live with you at least over 6 months out of the year. And that's something that's decided, who gets the claim, but you can't claim, two people can't claim the same person. So we need to stop some of this stuff. If you ended up with a divorce prior to, was that 2020, December, you may be able to deduct alimony. If it's after, because in 2020, in December of 2020, the individuals who received alimony had to claim it as income. So it would continue. This continues on. So it doesn't change. But after, the person who paid it doesn't deduct it, and the person who received it does not claim it as income. Okay, so just be careful there. And I'm thinking of anything else. I got my little notes here. Uniforms, cost and care of uniforms. I see now a lot of jobs are paying for the uniform. Uniform is considered wear that is not used in a normal living situation. So if you have a uniform that is a black pants and black shirt, and that black pants and black shirt doesn't have a logo on it, so it could be used in day-to-day life, that's not a deduction. Okay, and it only would be anyway on the state side, not the federal side. Always carry, when you're doing your tax returns, carry your last year's pay stub. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it would help the preparer to see what's going on with your income and possibly some deductions that you might be eligible for. So definitely take these items and put them to the side. If you have a child that's under the age of 13 and they're going to either an after-school program, and that after-school program could be very well be virtual. If you're paying for it, then you need to have the facility that you're paying, their EIN number, their employee identification number, that's what that stands for. And you need to have their name and address of where they're operating from. These are things you must take to the preparer. Now, if you're using one of those programs out there, not a problem. Just make sure that that's a question that gets answered, because many a times that gets skipped. Okay. Now, let's get to the meat of things, which is people who have businesses. Because a lot of people this year started businesses. Well, even more this year in 2022 as opposed to 2021, but many people did start in 2021. There's certain things that you should be doing if you own a business. One of the major things is you need to keep records. You need to know how much money did you take in. Now, if you're in business for yourself, you need to know what your income was. For twofold. One is to see, are you operating properly? But number two is to protect you if IRS comes to look and see, what are you doing? Are you in a business or are you in a hobby? Okay. If you constantly get a loss, and I know there's a lot of programs out there, multi-level marketing companies that say, oh, you get to write off everything. Yeah, you get to write off, but when you write off after about 3 to 5 years and you still showing a loss, it's a hobby as far as IRS is concerned, because you're in business to make a profit. You're not in business to take losses, just the way it is. And so, and there's things that you can do if you do make a profit. There's things. So that's why it's important that you have your team. I always talk about your team, your lawyer, your financial advisor, and your accountant. You need that team because there are things that you have eligibility for and be able to earn and maybe not wind up paying so much in taxes, but you need to know. And you need to have the attorney and the accountant to help you structure yourself. As far as what's going to be deductible and what's not, and also what is the structure on how the best way your business can function. Those are the things that are necessary. Advertising cost, little as many people think is that your advertising cost is like your website. Yeah, it's advertising. Also, the domain names. That's an advertisement. It's a lot different than years ago. We used to have billboards and we had moving signs and things like that. That's the physical stuff. Now it's really paying for the things that happen on the internet. So be very careful, but to make sure that you keep track. And there are some, I think that QuickBooks is my favorite go-to, but even old school, you could take an Excel spreadsheet, write down the expenses, but make sure you total them. On your Excel spreadsheet, there's a line that says sum. You can click it and bring it down the column and total it up. It makes it a lot easier when you because every time, and think about it this way, when you go to an accountant or a preparer, all the time that they take to put your return together means dollars. If you can shorten the time that they're working on it, it cuts the cost. So, I just want to throw that out there is that make life easier for yourself and for your accountants and preparers. Licensing, some of you will have businesses that have like if you have a nail salon or a hair a salon, you need licenses for it. If you're driving Uber, you have a cost of your license. Uber and Lyft. So those licenses are deductible. If you're functioning from a brick and mortar place, then you pay for the rent or the leasing that takes place. That's deductible. Now, there are a lot of people who have home offices. It must be an IRS code says that you must be operating from that as being the majority of the business. So I'll give an example. There was a case where there was a surgeon who did all of his paperwork from his home. Of course, he's not going to do it at the hospital. He's doing all his paperwork from home. But that's not where he makes the money. He makes the money by going into the hospital and doing surgery. So his home office was denied just a thought how this thing works. It has to be the principal place of where you're earning the money. So be careful. Um, and you want to check me, you go to irs.gov and go to publication 17. It's been that way for years. Since the time I started doing taxes, it has been publication 17. So go there and read a little bit, very important. The other things is utilities, your internet, um, phone, electricity. If you really have a home office, and what I recommend is that you have a full office, a place where you're functioning from. So it's not where the bikes and the storage room for all the stuff at the house. Don't do that. It needs to be specifically for that area is just for business. Now, I know some of you have small apartments and you're like, well, I use my living room table, or part of my living room. You do have to, they've allotted, and IRS has allotted to let you use, but it still has to be specifically and look like it is for the business. So if you utilize part of the living room, then you have to cart it off, section it off, and that's where only business takes place. So please be careful with it. And some people say, well, how in the world would they know? They will. I don't know when it's going back, but they've been over the years been able to uh, utilize and audit by knocking on your door. I don't think they're doing that right now because they don't have enough agents, but it will come back. So don't get in the habit of doing bad things or bad habits. The other thing is travel. We didn't do a lot of traveling either, but we're doing more now. And the travel is from door to door when you're going for business, from the time you leave your door to the time you return to your door. So keep track. I always say, I know many of you don't go for the paper. I'm old school, but you could use your phone and keep track. There's also some programs like Mint that you can use to put in and keep your expenses. Very important things, The thing with meals, I will alert you that there's different levels for meals when you're dealing in business. There's the meals that where we're chatting over business and some ideas. There's meals that we pay for our staff or teammates that work. There's different levels. There's a 50% of would be deductible up to 80% deductible. So these are the things that you've got to pay attention to. And entertainment is really not deductible anymore on any side, federal or state. Entertainment, like buying baseball tickets or movie tickets for individuals, no. That's something that definitely changed. And the key is to create your balance sheet. I was talking about QuickBooks or an Excel sheet. Well, that's what you need to do is to put something together, even if the way IRS calls it is that whatever system you use and whatever you put into a log for your balance sheets and keeping your records, as long as you are doing it and understanding it and can explain it, then you can keep that system. So find out, because some people just aren't tech savvy or whatever and can't do a QuickBooks. They might be able to do an Excel spreadsheet, might not be able to do that either. If they can't, it's okay. They can definitely do the old paper and ledger sheet on a graph paper, whatever works, but make sure that you keep it, and you have to keep it for 7 years. So whatever you file your returns, hold on to them or scan them, put them on the disk. Definitely some mechanisms, do something that won't make it that it will disappear, because I have had receipts that have been given to me and they're on that film and gone. And we need to be able to prove, if we ever get called, to prove the expenses. Again, if you have rental property and you have real estate tax, that $10,000 limit doesn't go for rental property, but it does go for your personal residence. Other things are if you have equipment, you're buying equipment, um, if it's a lease or even if it's a purchase, you need to have the dates and the receipts to prove it. These are just some of the things that you need to be able to provide. We're all going into business, and many of us are going into business. You've got to be able to make sure that everything stays on the up and up. You don't want a situation of where IRS comes in and shuts you down or tells you. I've had one situation I saw where someone was told they had too many losses. They went for a loss for 6 years, and IRS said, this is a hobby. And then they claim the income. Yeah, that's the bad part. They claim the income, but they don't claim the expenses. Don't want to be in that type of position. So these are just some of the things that I think you should be thinking about during this time. Please, please, please file early. It is one of those things you can get your documents and make sure that they're correct and file early, because IRS is limited staff. If you end up filing a paper return, warning, it's going to take a lot longer. There's nobody to review. There's very few to review the paper returns and process them. Unfortunately, those of you who have been victims of identity theft, you will have to file a paper return. And it can take up between 8 to 16 weeks. So let's pray that's not your situation, but just warning, that this is one of those, that this is not one of the things you have to experience. And so this is basically what I have for you today. It has been a real challenge out here in the financial world right now. It won't be there all the time. But I do say that all of you should have your financial advisor. You need to have your accountant and have an attorney. Now, not all the time you have to keep them on retainer. That can be costly, but you should at least think about if you can pay for an hour of advice, or, I don't know if anybody's going to do a half an hour, but if you can do an hour of advice, that, would help to make sure you're doing things right. Being in business is awesome, and it is necessary. It's something that my dad used to say is that he who writes the check is free. So you're free when you write checks and pay people. But the thing is that you have to put yourself in the position of where you're doing it right so that it doesn't get closed down. And also even putting yourself, making sure you have your team. That's the most important thing. So far, that's what I have for you today. Oh, I did want to talk about, that's going to take a little bit more time. Hope my producers hold on for me. There are a lot of people who have returns that haven't been filed, and they think that IRS will go away, and they won't know that they filed. If there is a 1099, a W-2, it most likely means that they've been reported to IRS. Please do not go beyond 3 years if necessary. If you have a refund, refunds you can claim up to 3 years with IRS. After 3 years, you just gave them back they not only let them hold the money all year long, or for the past 3 years, let them hold it, but then on top of it, they get to keep it because you can't get a refund from it. So don't take too long and hold your returns and thinking that it'll go away or that you don't need to file. Now, if it's a refund, they love it because then they don't have to give it back and they get to keep it and make money off of it. Okay, so it's your money. Don't put yourself in that position of where you don't get your refund. The other things is if you have a situation where you owe. I know people who have come to me through the years and they have, they decided they're just not going to file because they owe. It doesn't go that way. You may get a better benefit if you do file. And if you owe, take the time. There's a thing called a payment plan. Yeah, they'll work with you. If you are in a situation of where, let's say, you don't have any money, it would give you a hardship to try to pay them. Then there's other mechanisms. There's two things you can do. One is called the offer in compromise. You owe this money. I can't pay this, but I could possibly pay half, or I can, pay a third, whatever. Then you file the offer in compromise. If you're in a real destitute situation, they won't charge you to file the offer in compromise. If you're not, then they're going to charge you $200 to see if you can pay them or offer compromise the amount that you need to pay them. Now, the other thing is that, which doesn't cost money, but is get on the phone, call them and say, look, I need a payment plan. I can pay, $10. Yeah, you sometimes can get away with $10. The key is that if you take what you owe and divide it by 5, that's 5 years. Divide it by 12, that's the month within the year. That is probably the minimum that IRS will take as a payment. Okay? It's a simple formula. Divide the amount you owe by 5. That technically means 5 years. Okay? And then divide it by 12. That's the months. And you'll be able to see what they probably will accept. So those are some of the areas that are really, really important, I think, now, because I'm seeing more and more because of COVID. A lot of people lost their job. They got unemployment. They took money out of their 401k plan. And please, Lord, that's one of those things you should do, the last resort, where the foreclosure is coming and the marshal's at your door to take from your 401k plan. But if that's the case, please, please, please do not just sleep on it. Do the tax returns, make the negotiations so they'll leave you alone, because the interest rates on the money that you owe build and compound. We talk about the rule of 72, take the interest rate and divide it into 72, and it'll tell you how frequently your money will double. Well, think about 3%. Yeah, and per year, and what you could end up paying in addition, where you might have had a debt that may have been $1,000 could easily turn into $2,000 to $3,000. So don't put yourself in that type of position, And again, don't sleep on filing early. This way, you know what your situation is. And if anything should come up, you can battle it right away. And if you have some questions, I'll open up that maybe at sometimes, if you call my office, 646-375-2121. And if we can help in any way, we'll be glad to be able to help you. It's about creating financial freedom in our community. Now, of course, if it's real in-depth situation, there's a fee for consultation. But we do want to help. Okay, yes, and for a free financial analysis, give a call to the office, 646-375-2121. And so if you wind up owing this year, to prevent from owing, if you wind up owing for 2021, because, it's kind of difficult when we use this term because 2021, we're filing in 2022. But if you owe for 2021 and you don't want to owe again in 2022, then also there's and it's called a withholding, what do they call it? Calculator, a withholding calculator on IRS.gov. There's a lot going on. I'm telling you, it's just so much. Through the years, all my years of doing taxes and doing financial consultations, I would really say, I've always said, oh, this is the worst. This is the worst. No, this is really the worst, because there's not a lot for John Q. Public, for the general populace. It's not a lot. And the fact that many people had unemployment and did not withhold any tax from the federal and state, which means they are going to owe something. And they need to be able to pay it. And some people took money out of their 401k plans and didn't withhold any tax. You must have that in your back of your mind when those things happen. If you're taking money from your 401k plan and you didn't withhold, and you're not 59 and a half, here we go. There's penalty, and more penalty. So hopefully you don't put yourself in that position. So I'm hoping that you learned something tonight. We have a wonderful month of Black History Month. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the heroes and sheroes that are out there in this, that have done so much in the financial service arena. Most people don't know about them because no one thinks that we really exist in the financial service industry, but we do. And we have a lot to share and a lot to give to our community. So I just say, keep listening. See you next week on Thursday at 6 p.m. on the Soul City Network, Access Wealth Nation. And I'm Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse, and I'd like to thank you and be safe.
She was told that she couldn't play with the boys. She was told that they were too big, too rough, too strong. She was told to give up her dreams and move on. She was told to just be pretty, be quiet, be a lady. She was told that women had to stay on their side of the court, stay in your lane. Playing and competing with men was insane. She was told that men and women would never be equal. Dreaming like that would only be leaked to your mind, to your soul. She never listened. She knew that their thinking was old. She was magic. She is the definition of spirit. She is what champions are made of. She is magic.